Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Tables with your host, Rob Radley,
John Charles Ciccarelli,
James Burrows,
and Damien Hallwood.
Well, the intro is lying to us. We don't have a Rob this week. We are instead joined by a guest who is potentially the real Rob, who has finally
I am a
taken
known identity thief, and I would prefer it if you didn't air my business in the streets like this.
See, I knew it. I knew this was actually Rob the whole time. Now we have proof. Excellent. Welcome,
we're
Jack.
sorry, real Rob, that fake Rob has taken your identity for these past 34, 35 weeks.
Something along those lines. Yeah. What episode is this? What are we on? 30.
I think we could waste a lot of time trying to work that out. It's in the 30s.
Listener, you'll know because you clicked on it just now. So
No, instead this week we do have Jack Price, another one of our Rolldark DMs, joining us for.
Huzzah!
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
It's good to have you too. So, how has everyone's past week since last recording? So, the weekend and the tail end of the start of this week. I keep forgetting we don't record on Tuesdays anymore. It's a Thursday.
Yeah.
Greetings, fellow adventurers. Are you tired of using subpar tables for your epic tabletop quests?
Absolutely. We need something that matches the grandeur of our adventures.
Well, fear not, dear listeners. Allow us to introduce to you Robert Rose Carpentry. Established for 10 years as a specialist in crafting bespoke gaming tables that are as functional as they are beautiful.
built to precision with custom add-ons and exclusive features, 100% sustainable and environmentally friendly. Every inch of their gaming tables are made from reclaimed wood, then crafted into a solid masterpiece that will last aeons.
And here's the best part. As proud sponsors of Tales from the Tables, Robert Rose Carpentry are offering an exclusive 10% discount to all our listeners.
Imagine the thrill of transforming your dining table into a custom-built gaming experience for you, your friends, and your family to enjoy time and time again.
So don't wait any longer. Head over to www.robertrosecarpentry.com/tales from the tables and use the code ROLLDARK10 to claim your discount at checkout.
Craftsmanship, adventure, and savings. What more could you ask for? Thanks to Robert Rose Carpentry for supporting our podcast and enhancing our gaming experiences.
Absolutely. Now let's roll those dice and weave some epic tales.
Indeed. Until the next time, adventurers.
Super busy on my end. I mentioned before about getting ready to sell our house. We're really close to having that up for sale. And so painting, decorating, sealing, getting a skip, filling the skip, cleaning the driveway, pressure washing the driveway, clearing moss off of the roof. You name it, I've been at it. So me and the wife have been working super hard to get the house looking super pretty for photos. So that's been pretty much my entire week.
I feel like
But
there's
you,
some
Jack?
sort of law of physics that no matter how big a skip you get, you will fill it.
Oh, we filled it. It was a big skip too, and we filled it. We filled it.
Even if you get to the biggest skip possible, thinking, "Oh, we don't actually have a lot to get in it," you'll fill it. You'll find stuff to put in it.
God. Yeah.
It's up there with thermodynamics and the law of skips always being filled.
New paper being published very soon in science magazines near you.
Yeah, what about you, Jack?
Awesome.
Oh, this week has been a lot of games, actually. 3 evenings of games, which is, the best way to do a week. But I was in the Lake District camping over the weekend. So
lovely.
Getting back on Monday afternoon, just kind of covered in filth and stinking of firewood. Like, I have to prepare for a game that's in 2 hours. And there was a little bit of mental whiplash of coming out of the wilderness and getting straight into different characters.
Real immersive though for you to have come back as a grungy adventurer.
Yeah, I was gonna say you spent some time outdoors. You actually did the adventuring thing. That's good.
I'm a method DM. It's a whole new thing I'm starting to practice. I'm gonna start.
I'd imagine
taking to cave systems with a sword strapped to my back to make sure I'm ready.
I saw a story recently about a bunch of, I think they were Spanish guys dressed as the Fellowship of the Ring who were walking from their hometown to, I think,
Mhm.
Mount Vesuvius with a replica of the One Ring, and that and they were doing it in character, like dressed in character,
Oh, that's amazing.
doing a walk
They should do it
that far.
also with the same amount of like perceived rations and stuff. Like no modern equipment, just exactly what the characters wore and carried with them the
Yeah,
entire trip.
no, I mean, there's got to be like an equivalent, a human equivalent to Lambus bread, right? I don't know what it is.
Surely.
Surely.
Just
Surely.
real sugary bread.
Fried bread. Just lots of fried bread. Just
Fried
dense.
dough the
Really
whole
dense
way.
bread.
I think
Yeah.
you fry American bread. The sugar content in that is probably
American bread. Whatever that is. Yeah. But yeah, I can see
There's a
that.
reason
I
you
can
don't
see
put
that.
butter on your sandwiches in America, and it's because of all the sugar in the bread. I hear that is the rumor.
Yes, you are not wrong. Instead, we slap it with mayo or something equally horrible. It's true. It's true. But yeah, what about you, James? Anything fun over the week / weekend?
Yes, yeah. Actually, I got the chance to go to a place called Phantom Peak in London, which is like an immersive. It's really hard to describe what it is. Really,
Ooh.
it's like an immersive theatre experience. But essentially, they've built this like Western steampunky town in Canada Water in London, and they're fully populated with actors who are all playing different roles. And then it's sort of like an escape room where you have different quest lines you
Oh.
can go on and sort of find out more about the like lore of the town and things. Also, they did quite a lot of nice cocktails, which I was a big fan of. And the
Lovely.
food was really good. So yeah,
From what I can
if you
see,
get
it kind of looks Wild West-ish, almost like a steamboat
yeah.
era.
Yeah, it's that's that sort of era, and then also sort of like a lot of weird science.
Oh,
So
cool.
one of the
Okay.
quests we did, which I won't spoil, but it involved sort of hunting down a dinosaur-like creature, um, which is pretty cool. And then there was another one that, I mean, a lot of it involves like robotic stuff. So a lot, they sort of look similar-ish to what are the robots from Fallout New Vegas, the ones with like the TV head, like smiley TV faces and the arms.
Oh, Mr. Something. It's not Mr.
Yeah,
Big.
I remember. But they
Happy? Something like that.
aesthetically
Yeah,
a
something
lot
like
of
that.
that. But I have to say the actors that we interacted with were all really great. Like they're very good at staying in character, are very fun to interact with, and yeah, it was great. If you are already playing D&D or you like improv type stuff, because a lot of the quests to complete them, you have to convince the actors of stuff. So it's sort
Right.
of open to interpretation how you go about doing that. So yeah, we had me and Jade went. And we had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. That actually looks really cool. And there's one of, I don't know, there's this an image I came across of Neil Patrick Harris gesturing at it behind him going,
Yes.
Phantom Peak is amazing. And all I want to be is like, no, you're amazing, Neil Patrick Harris.
He really is.
He is.
Oh, that sounds so cool. But hey, speaking of immersive experiences, I also got to see a pretty cool thing over the weekend. I went to go see the officially licensed D&D show on Broadway called 20-Sided Tavern, or The 20-Sided Tavern, which was a total blast. Absolutely. Highly
looks
recommend
so
to
cool. It
any
looks
theater and nerd
amazing.
here. It really is. Honestly, I went in without a single clue of what was going on. I had a really busy week. I was running a ton of games. A friend of mine had reached out earlier in the week being like, hey, I'm going this Sunday. Do you want to come? Tickets are relatively, affordable. And I was like, yeah, okay. Sent him a Venmo and barely had a chance to look it up. And we both went in completely unaware of what it was. We knew it was a D&D show. That was it, pretty much it. It turns out it is very officially a D&D show. It has the Dungeons and Dragons branding everywhere. And when we walked in, I didn't realize this, but it's like, co-produced by Wizards of the Coast and stuff. The first thing I saw was this 20-foot long by about 8-foot tall map of the Sword Coast on the wall. very well detailed too. I took a picture of it and everything, and I was like, and then behind that were all the banners of the different factions, like the Emerald Enclave and the Zentarim and the Lord's Alliance, etc. And I was just like, oh, it's real. I'm in it. It was amazing. And I started wandering around, and I was wearing like a nerdy shirt, and people were complimenting me on it. And we went upstairs and we checked out the merch. Don't buy the merch. The merch was too expensive. It was like $80 for a hoodie. But the props were beautiful.
The Eras Tour merch.
Yeah.
That's
seriously.
Crazy.
It's insane. 80 quid for a hoodie was just too much. Even the dice bags, I think, like the regular Chessex dice bags with just the dice bag itself branded outside with 20-sided tavern was, I think, like 20 quid or 25 quid. And I was like, oh, come on. No. But that's Broadway. It got to Broadway very quick. Technically, the show is off Broadway, but it was on 42nd Street and like 9th Avenue. So still very central. And when we got inside, the set was beautiful. So basically the theater was designed as a tavern, and they were heads of different recognizable creatures sculpted onto the pillars of the walls. So I was like, ooh, that one's I think we had like, that one's a blue dragon, and probably a young blue dragon, and that one's a hook horror. That's interesting. So there was a little, and the shelves were filled with all kinds of swords and potions and different like paraphernalia that you could goggle at for ages while you waited for the show to start. But they also handed you a program with stickers in it and a QR code, and you had to scan the QR code. And for the rest of the performance, you had your phone in your hand active, because it's extremely audience participation / immersive sort of experience. You could vote for literally almost every choice in the show, where the players decided to go to figure out their investigation, what spell they cast, which you were usually given one of two options, and the players would flavor it as something strange, like one of them said, like, all right, well, for my turn, I can either force the enemy to eat a bowl of spaghetti, or give them a languid kiss. And then you'd have no idea which one meant. You just picked whatever you thought which was funnier, you preferred. And then languid kiss ended up being like a lightning bolt spell or something like that, just flavored as a kiss. It was great. But the comedy was top notch. It was a small audience too. I think it was sub 200 people. So we really felt immersed with it. There was a lot of just open talking back and forth. Not really what you expect at a stage show, but at one point we were just shouting and going like, hey, we should give him a reroll. And like the DM directly faced me like, no, reroll. And I was like, yeah, we were just shouting back and forth. It was great. The DM was fabulous. It was basically 3 actors playing themselves, and then playing their characters, and then a DM and a co-DM sort of running the show. Great visual effects on the screen in the back. Just overall, absolutely a fun, low stakes, absolutely hilarious adventure. Highly, highly, highly recommend anybody check it out, because if you do check it out and people realize that this is doing well, we'll get more of this. We'll get more content. So yeah.
Yes.
That's sorry for ranting, but that's what I have.
No, to be fair, it sounds awesome. I really hope they bring it to the UK, or I'm gonna have to plan a trip to New York, which I'm not against, if I'm honest.
Do it. You have to do it, James. You'll be hosted.
Ooh, okay.
I love New York. I went for my 30th. I went to New York City, and it was I loved it. Yeah.
I think the show was touring, is planning on touring. I know it was in Edinburgh for a while, and it feels very much like that. It feels very fringy. Okay. In a weird way. But now with Wizards of the Coast money thrown at it, so it has production value and looks really, really cool.
Well,
for sure.
You potentially being at Fringe and if these guys tour, then I'd have absolutely
no
make it
to Fringe.
Go, really. Oh.
Yeah. Honestly, they actually, watching the show, this is going to sound funny after I just said how awesome it was. I actually got really pissed off Because I always do when like something is really great and I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. Like I could be doing this. Like I could do this, we could make this happen. Rolldark could make this happen. We could host exactly that kind of show. And we have the talent for it. And now that you kind of see how it's done, you can do it as a one shot. You can do it as an ongoing campaign. My friend did something really similar at a live theater presentation that was called The Campaign, and every Thursday that you would go, it would continue the story. And then she'd have a little like visual summary of what happened last time up on the screen under a minute for people to get. And it was only an hour each time, but it was that was such a great show. I've often bothered her to be like, bring it back. It sounds so much fun. So anyway, again, sorry for ranting, but that was the week. It was great.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Well, that's us all caught up with each other. And now sort of I'm just seethingly jealous of everyone else's weekends as well.
Even mine.
Well, okay, let's know.
Yes, especially yours, Damien. Let's be real.
I love painting. I definitely didn't get enough of that when I moved my house and I had to repaint the entire thing. No, it's a horrible task to have to do. So, do we have any news this week?
We do. We've got one D&D centric piece of news, continuing the trend of drip feeding artwork down our hungry GM throats, and then a couple of kicks. Sorry, James. And then a couple of Kickstarters that are worth mentioning. One of which we sort of hinted at last week. I think we've all had a chance to get a bit of a better look at it. So, first and foremost, Wizards of the Coast continue to drop artwork in random places across the internet for us to seek out and enjoy. So this time, we had already the Player's Handbook alternate cover. We've also seen all 3 core book covers, like the standard cover. This time, we got both the Monster Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, I'm not seeing the Dungeon Master's Guide being reported in many places. The Monster Manual is getting reported seemingly more, but they are all 3 available to view now. So we'll start with the Monster Manual, which personally is my favorite of the 3. And I would be surprised if it wasn't most people's. Each to their own, but it is a very good cover. So, much like the Player's Handbook one, it is sort of a single colour book for the most part, a kind of patchy, almost misty single colour, in this case a sort of oceanic greeny blue colour, with gold writing in filigree in the 50th anniversary logo on the back, and then featuring a front and centre piece of artwork on the front cover, along with the title, of course. In this case, the artwork depicts the sort of head and shoulders and outreaching hand of an illithid, a mind flayer, looking suitably sinister in blues and pinks and purples, holding out a parasitic tadpole, inviting you into their circle, into the Monster Manual. And in fact, the art director mentioned that was one of the design philosophies, was the idea that it was literally inviting you into the book by inviting you into its fold. It's gorgeous.
It's awesome.
I don't have I have no negative ninny comments about this book at all.
No.
The gold on the blue and green, the contrast of the front artwork, the sinister look, and obviously an iconic monster. They said they wrestled with which monster to choose, but given the amount of stock that has gone into the Mind Flayer over recent years with Baldur's Gate 3 and Stranger Things and, of course, Dungeons & Dragons itself, it's become a much more iconic monster. And they also said that anybody that doesn't know what it is would look at that thing and be enticed to be like, wow, what's that?
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, that's the first thing you see? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, this D&D thing I keep hearing about sounds cool. Let me go and have a look at these books. Like, if seeing that, I would be like, I'm in. Count me in immediately. I don't know what that is.
Well,
but
it'll draw the
like
hentai crowd
kill
for
it.
sure.
Okay.
But actually, Damien, This design of the Mind Flayer, interestingly, is very Baldur's Gate 3
I was
Mind.
going to mention that it has a sort of collar, raised spiked collar that's very reminiscent of the artwork from Baldur's Gate for the Illithids.
And the creature head as well, the sort of more elongated skull with the exposed brain matter on the sides.
Yeah.
The pupils visible in the eyes as well. This is all very obviously. I would say, I would be as bold to say this, like, that's basically the Emperor from the game. So,
yeah, very, very awesome piece of artwork. And it has definitely, I said that I would wait because I wasn't a big fan of the Player's Handbook artwork. I thought it was a little safe and a little chill for a Player's Handbook. But this has definitely increased my interest in getting all three. And
I was thinking the same as well.
Yeah.
I know we've not talked about it yet, but we will do in a second, the Dungeon Master's Guide one. But in retrospect, the Monster Manual art and the Dungeon Master's Guide art makes me like the Player's Handbook art slightly more.
Yes.
I'm sort of, I want to get all three.
Yeah, I do too. So we'll jump to the Dungeon Master's Guide real quick. So in this case, it is a sort of very, very, very soft purpley red color with gold filigree, of course, matching the other two books. And front and center on this book, I'm very excited personally. I know I've mentioned this individual several times and wanted to see her writ large across D&D more frequently. It is labeled as Lolth. This is coming to us from Games Radar. This is where this cover has been revealed. And it is an image of a very beautiful and alluring, very elfin Lolth, albeit with great big crustacean-like spider legs. I know they're not crustaceans, they're arachnids. I know. I have spiders. Don't worry. But these look very crustacean-like. They're very armored legs.
Yeah.
And she is descending down from the top portion of the artwork, her golden hair kind of spreading up almost like drapes up towards the top of the book, around a very poor individual who is almost entirely covered in webs as she seals them very delicately into her web. She has some more humanoid arms towards the front of her body, and it looks like she's about to cover the eyes of the poor individual with a freshly made batch of web, while one arm holds what I assume is their staff aside very gently, just to say no chance.
I was wondering about that. I was like, some sort of rod or staff.
And the other is, there's something delicately evil about the way she is just, the tip of her claws is touching the hand of this poor individual. It's just barely poking out of the web, and she's just touching the end of their fingers just very delicately as she horrifyingly wraps them up. But her face is not spider-like at all. It's very elfin, it's very gold with huge ears, very feminine. It's a really nice piece of artwork, and I love the character. She hasn't had a stat block since 4th edition, so I'm hoping this is a promise, given that she has her origins.
That's crazy.
Given that she has her origins in Greyhawk, and we already know that Greyhawk is getting a big revival in the revised books, I suspect we might get finally more of Lolth. Very exciting. And if you want to see, these of course have been spread across the internet in a myriad of places, but if you want to see all three books sort of stacked together artwork-wise to see the way the colours match one another, you can see that on EN World. They have an article which has all three books lined up together, and that really does make all three of them pop, and definitely piques my interest on that Player's Handbook. Rather than the artwork now, my criticism has shifted to the main color of the book, because the main color of the book is very similar to the writing, and so the writing gets a little lost in it. Whereas the other two books, the gold stands out really well on the dark.
Right.
The dark blue and the dark red. So
you are correct, because the gold dragon, or I believe that's meant to be a gold dragon.
It is the new gold dragon design.
Yeah, right. Kind of drowns out the lettering a bit. You're correct.
So we have all three.
Plus the dead faces of the characters on the players.
The doll-like expressions. We have all three. I think now I probably will get all 3. I'm still not a big fan of the Player's Handbook overall, but all 3 together look gorgeous, and I think I will be getting all 3. I'd love to get your guys' opinion on these. Any thoughts?
I mean, you can always get me roped in with something with mind flayers. I'm here for it. They're they have always been my favorite D&D monster ever since I realized that they shared so many qualities with the Reapers from the Mass Effect series. We did it, Damien. We brought it back in.
Every episode.
That's where Rob actually is. We've locked him in a room. We've
Yes,
him to play Mass Effect in some sort of
we've done
Orange
the Clockwork
situation.
Orange thing. We're holding his eyes open. Sorry, that imagery is really funny in my head. But no, I don't know, and I feel like this is actually kind of divisive around the community. A lot of people are loving the covers. A lot of people don't like that they're a little bit more soft, almost pastel-like in a way, and that the artwork is a bit more, for lack of a better word, cartoonish. It's not really cartoonish, but it has a more like sort of laid back animated vibe, whereas the other covers have more of like a very sharp focused digital artwork vibe.
Very modern,
right.
more heavy, more like especially the Dungeon Master's Guide, very heavy metal kind of cover versus these which are more painterly and fable like.
Yeah, and I can see that complaint. I'm a big fan of the gold filigree. I love, for instance, the alt cover to Candlekeep Mysteries, for those of you familiar with that, which has a lot of that sort of beautiful, vine-like filigree all around it in Boston threaded gold and stuff. So the back cover and the overall just design of it, I do like. I don't know how I feel about the artwork. I like. In theory, I like them all. Do I like them as my alt editions for a new version of the books? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when they come out.
That is an interesting point. All of the books for 5th edition have had alt covers that all followed a design philosophy, a very strict sort of theme in the way that they looked. It'd be interesting to see whether that will continue with these. Whether all of the alt books that I'm assuming we will be inundated with over the coming years will match this same style.
I wonder. Yeah, because we had a lot of Hydro 74 artwork for the alt covers of other things, but lately they've been kind of, let's just say, playing up the variety on that. Like the Phandelver and Below Shattered Obelisk cover was not that. It was very, very different. It wasn't even the usual soft touch gloss treatment. It was just pure like lacquer and gloss. And it had a myriad green sort of eldritch theme to it.
On that note, I don't know about you, JC, given that you have a big collection of them, but I only have, I think, one of the alt covers of the 5e books, which was Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. And over the time I've owned it, the black has become it's got rubbed off and in places.
That's the thing.
So I think I may have to, apologies to the wife, I may have to buy these books twice. The limited editions to have on display, and then the standard editions to tear through and work with, because
you mean thrice, because you maybe buy it for D&D Beyond as well, or something
there is always that. There is always that. So I don't want them to get ruined and dinged and dog-eared. And
get book covers. That's what I would do.
Very true.
I have my player's handbook wrapped up in one.
Jack, do you have any thoughts on these covers? How are you feeling about it?
I think I could definitely get behind these alt covers being like the design philosophy moving through this updated edition. They look a little bit more, I don't know, they look a little bit more regal. There's like a tone of, there is some ancient knowledge in this lovely kind of
I like
soft
that take.
feel to it. It almost looks textured and old, and I think it's kind of a criticism I have of a lot of the standard covers throughout 5th edition, is they all do just feel a bit like poppy, like, oh, here's a nice picture of something. Like it doesn't suggest a lot of the time we're about to go off on an epic adventure. It's kind of the same criticism I'd have for like most modern day movie posters, and that they all feel a little bit formulaic. Like, let's put the here's a monster, here's 3 adventurers, cool formula. Like it's
Yeah,
there's
I see
nothing
what you
about
mean.
them that shouts this is super special. This is I mean, there are definitely exceptions to that, but on the whole, they don't scream like there's an incredible ancient tome of adventure waiting for you. But I think these alt covers definitely do that a lot more.
I think it's the difference between the other covers are a couple of pieces of artwork and then all the sort of bump from gubbins written all over the front of that. Whereas the entire book is a piece of artwork, and like you say, designed to look like more of an old tome that you might see in an old library with the gold and the soft pastel colors. It almost looks aged. It almost looks distressed, which is really really nice. I'd not necessarily picked up on that, but that's a great point. Yeah, I want him. I like him.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll
add to basket.
I'll definitely be getting them. So
yeah.
I have my little qualms, but I'll probably end up buying it, won't I? I know me. I'm a sucker. I'll do it. I'm already on eBay looking for the Volo's Guide to Monsters alt cover again, just to see if it's still around, and it is, but it's too expensive.
Yeah. So speaking of expensive, and also we'll come to gold front covers in a minute, JC. That's really it for the news, but there's a couple of Kickstarter pieces that I think bear mentioning. We hinted at it last week, and by now, if you're deep into tabletop RPGs and especially D&D, I'm almost certain you'll have heard of this. DC 20 is being touted as the next evolution of tabletop role-playing games by the Dungeon Coach. It is on Kickstarter, and it is, boy, is it funded. They were asking for 15 in Great British pounds. They were asking for 15,643, and they currently are just over £1 million.
Holy shit!
That translates to about $1.3 million of a $20,000 goal.
I'm seeing it right now with 12,500 backers, almost 12.6.
It still has 18 days to go.
Wow.
Needless to say, this has been popular. It's very interesting. I am interested in this. I'll go through very briefly the sort of the top end description that it gives for it. It has only 4 attributes: might, agility, intelligence, and charisma. 4 action point system, so you have 4 actions you can take on a turn to make combat more fluid. At least that's the theory, more fluid and dynamic. Reactions can use action points to have a reaction. Custom character and ancestry creation. Spellcasters have mana points to spend on spell enhancements. Martial characters have stamina points for attack maneuvers. Skill challenge mechanics, shout out to 4th edition, for combat, social, and exploration. Social mechanics, disposition, reputation, and morale. And exploration mechanics, travel, rest, and downtime. All things that it puts front and center as being sort of the core draw for the book. So it sounds like it's taking 5th edition, stripping some of it down even further, because I would argue 5th edition was a relatively stripped down system to begin with, certainly from its older editions like 3rd edition. One of the things that actually put some people off is that it was stripped down, who then moved on to Pathfinder and beyond. So stripped down, simplified, dynamic. It also has a kind of, the artwork in this gives me a sort of 80s cartoon vibe almost.
I see that
on the cover. If you're interested in this, check it out. It is likely this will get made. I suspect that this will get made. There's a whole raft of tier options that you can buy in on, everything from digital to limited edition covers and dice and t-shirts and you name it, and then many stretch goals which are being smashed through even as we speak. Anybody else? Any thoughts on DC 20?
There's something about this whole success. So I've watched a little bit of the Dungeon Coach before this came out on his YouTube channel. I know he had a pretty popular one, not say one of the more popular D&D content creators out there on YouTube, but still decent. The sheer success, the sheer instant success of this Kickstarter, I think is mostly attributed to the fact that he got a lot of other people roped into it, a lot of other more, I would dare say, more popular YouTubers. And there's something about the marketing strategy for this that fascinates me. I don't know exactly what it is, because yes, it sounds like a really interesting RPG, and I'd be willing to try it out and play test it and stuff. But the fact that if you go down the Kickstarter page, there's little blurbs almost reminding me of how, you'll see the blurbs from Volo or Mordenkainen in their respective books, or Tasha's in their respective books. But these blurbs from those content creators like D&D Shorts or Bob the World Builder and stuff that are, giving their thumbs up of approval on this. And I don't know, that's fascinating to me. How much, I wonder, my brain is just going, I wonder how much they're getting out of this that helped contribute to the almost massive instant success that it has now. $1 million worth of funding, or 1.3 million worth of funding, £1 million.
It's a great point. I also think the sheer audacity of it, of sort of touting this as the next generation of very, very, well, not subtly at all, the next generation of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition,
Yeah.
without saying the name, months before we start to see the official next generation of Dungeons and Dragons, is kind of crazy. It's such an audacious move.
It is.
And I know we've had playtest materials for many months for the next official books, but this seems so confident that it's going to smash that out of the water, and maybe it will. I mean, given the funding that it's got, maybe it will make a big play for top spot.
And it's on the tails of like things that just recently got very popular on Kickstarter, like MCDM's our new RPG. And, not that this was on Kickstarter, but Critical Role's Daggerheart is coming out too. So there's a lot of competition in the space right now. And I'm like, guys, please, one at a time, stay in line. I don't have all the time I need to devote to all these cool new systems that are coming out. Okay.
We mentioned I think it was last week, that the Void Runners Codex for Sci-Fi 5e was coming to Kickstarter. That is now live. It is funded. It isn't up on the stratospheric levels of DC 20, but it is funded. It still has 21 days to go, and it looks like it has very nice production values based on the art of the books. You'll stand to get some very cool sci-fi fantasy materials out of that if you want to fund that one, if you want to go up into space and fly spaceships with your 5th edition rule set. Looking very, very nice. You're right, JC. There is just an absolute wealth of riches that, in terms of TTRPG options for people to go to. If you want it a little more simple, go this way. If you want it super complex, go this way. If you want sci-fi, go that way. If you want official licensed, Walking Dead, Lord of the Rings, Alien, Star Trek, Fallout, if you want to go in that direction, go for it. That's also available. We live in a world of just an unbelievable amount of TTRPGs available for pretty much whatever you want to get into. We're even getting a Tomb Raider TTRPG, for goodness sake.
I know, which is wild to me.
I have my Power Rangers one on the shelf, front and center. If you can think of it, there's probably an RPG for it now. It's kind of wild. I also mentioned Blade Runner was getting a Replicant Rebellion, a campaign book for the already successful Blade Runner role-playing game that has also gone live and is also funded, with only 7 hours to go at the time of recording. But that is also funded. So if you're a Blade Runner fan and you want a campaign book, again, production values from Free League have always been great. I love the production values of Free League's books. The artwork is always really gorgeous. And it all follows a very similar design philosophy, no matter what the IP they're doing. It has a similar style, but it's very, very beautiful. And I can't go out without mentioning just this last one, because I have huge interest in this one. This is from Archvillain Games, who are, if you have 3D printers or you buy 3D printed models, you've probably seen Archvillain Games. They do great boss monsters.
Mhm.
They do. Yeah.
I've seen this. Yeah.
Well, their campaign is also massively funded. They were asking for £33,000, $40,000. They're currently sitting at £741,000,
Wow.
$877 million, closing in on their final stretch goal. Now, this setting is all
Crazy.
about death. As the title suggests, it has death and resurrection mechanics. It states that a total party kill is just the beginning of your adventure in this game.
Oh, that's a premise.
Some of the races that you can play, there's a very ghostly Etherborn. You can play a straight up skeleton. A new stretch goal race that just got funded was the Necromechanica, which is a corpse in a big cylinder with a metallic body around it, walking around.
Oh, cool.
It's
Okay.
awesome. Now, the production values on this are astonishing. The books have a gold. Here we go, JC. A gold embossed cover on all of the books. There's a campaign setting, an adventure, and some other guides, as well as an art of book. They are very categorically saying no AI on this one. They're you get miniatures, both in STL and physical, depending on how you fund it, for what I think is now 14 boss monsters with deep rules on how those boss monster encounters work, including how it works in their lair. You can check some of it out. If you go to the Kickstarter for this, they have some playtest materials for races, subclasses, one of the big boss monsters, and how that boss encounter will play out, as well as some of the monsters as well. The miniatures are astonishing. The artwork is astonishing. The deluxe editions of the books, if you're in a position to fund it that way, are beautiful.
Even the dice are astonishing.
The dice are god. They've got liquid core dice. There's a set of dice made of labradorite, which is a mineral from Labrador Isle in Canada.
Yeah,
yeah. Home of the good old Labrador. Yes, that Labrador. This if you like dark settings and you've got some money to throw at it, I don't think you could get much better. This is a DC20 looks very good and the rules seem very interesting, but comparative prices for the production values you get between the two of them, no offense to the artwork team on DC20, it looks great, but this is, at least in my opinion, on another level of production value.
I can agree with that for sure.
So that's it. That one may or may not make it to my shelves. Because
the miniature of the what looks like a Dracolich, or whatever their take on the Dracolich is, this skeletal undead dragon with literal, and this is when I say miniature, I'm talking about like a shelf topper. This thing is probably huge, but it's got actual fabric of like a tattered cloak draped over its wings. And my favorite part about this, it's perched over what looks like a podium made of skulls and bones, but the rib cages are acting as a book holder, and the dragon is perched over a giant's skull, or maybe a cyclops' skull, reading into the propped up open tome.
It's so heavy metal.
It's so heavy metal. It's so good.
That, I believe, is called a Necrolon, and he is on the playtest materials. I think I actually sent you the PDF, JC, of this to have a look at.
Yeah.
He's a really cool lich dragon who crosses the multiverse to try and find as much lore on everything as he possibly can.
I realize I need more lich dragons in my games after this, guys.
So there we go.
James, you're the expert on that one, right?
Yeah, I had one at Rolldark Fest, and they're sick.
The theme for this week's news segment has been "Let us spend your money for you."
Clearly.
All very, very beautiful.
When are we coming out with a Kickstarter? When is Rolldark doing a self-published setting or adventure, or
it's surely only a matter of time?
At this point, it's its own system. You know,
we were already looking at the Ghostbusters license last week, so
it's true. It's true, but we need something to compete in this space.
Can we crowdfund for the money to buy the Ghostbusters license?
And then produce that. That would be amazing.
Tempt me further. Awesome. So that's it. That's it from me, from news.
Nice. Very, very cool.
So I guess then we're jumping into Tales from the Table. Let's start with Jack, as I believe
Jack, the reason we brought you on today for this really apparently epic Tales from the Table. Yeah, go for it.
It's a particularly bizarre one, and possibly a cautionary tale for getting too deep into your own silly improvs. It's causing hot problems for yourself later. So I think I should probably preface this story by saying that the Keepers of Chaos game that this is from has been ongoing for a few years now.
Yeah.
We're quite deep into a lot of very heavy, very weird and wonderful things. But along the way, we've also picked up a hell of a lot of really cool NPCs, and people's families have grown and backstories have become a huge part of the world. So now, between every kind of major campaign arc, we play a two-shot. Started doing that for scheduling reasons. We had a lot of people away for various times of the year. But now it's just become our kind of our structure, and we have started using the NPCs as the party when we do a two-shot. So everybody
that's
puts
brilliant.
down their main character, and they'll go and pick up something else that's, you know, interesting to them in the world. And one of our main characters has got a real interest in making arms and ammunition now. They've become a little bit of a weapons trader on the side during their downtime. So they rolled themselves up a Warforged that was effectively one of the creations from their ammunitions workshop. So they've built this sentient creature and sent it out on its way to test drive it effectively in the stresses of battle. So we already had a pretty eclectic mixture of some of the maddest stuff that we've encountered over the last few years.
Yeah.
We took off into the astral sea aboard a lobster-shaped spelljammer who was sentient and named Rock, the Rock Lobster. You know exactly what sound
God.
I was hammering out for this. There was a lot of cowabunga dudes going on throughout the game. But that spelljammer had been made using some technology that we've found, that we've acquired from various things that have fallen into our plane throughout the course of the last few years, including chunks of a Mind Flayer Nautiloid.
Yes.
So, first complication is we get in space, and I mean, we've pissed off a hell of a lot of people along the years. One of those people is a group of Minotaur pirates that are now siding with the Mind Flayers in the enemy of my enemy, you know, is my friend type logic. So
right. The NPC crew being the enemies.
Being the enemy now.
Yeah.
So they turn up in the sky alongside us. They haven't quite cracked how to turn their pirate ships into full working spelljammers yet. So instead, they were on these huge, like literal hands that float through the sky that carry the pirate ships for them, so they can still man their ship. We had a kind of spelljamming helm, but on these new chaotic Minotaurs that instead of having horns, they have hands. And when they put the helm glove on, they have to point in the direction that they want to go in.
Oh no. The imagery is hilarious.
So things got real weird real fast off the bat in this game. They managed to defeat them with some pretty ingenious stuff. There was a lot of talk about the physics of traveling through the astral sea, and is it wet because it has the word sea in it? What would dust of dryness en masse do to something that may be in some way wet? But long story short, they created a small black hole behind their vessel.
As you do, you know,
just totally normal thing. One of those questions that, like, you know, a player's got a maneuver up their sleeve when they start asking you vague, leading to increasingly specific questions about where they are. And it's like, yes, I am taking applications for bullshit at this time. Please bring me your best remarks. So they defeated those guys and arrived at our destination. We've been given some coordinates to follow. A hapless businessman had been looking for help because chaos is ravaging his newest endeavor. The endeavor turns out to be something that they didn't expect, that they didn't see coming. We land on this planet to meet the businessman that has called us here. Malcolm Bloomgold was his name. Nobody got the Goldblum
No,
flip over
oh,
until it
come
was
on.
too late. Yeah, we meet this guy, and
wow.
the first point of description is yeah, he looks pretty much like Jeff Goldblum if he were an elf. And then through the trees come marauding hordes of little raptors. Another fantastic audio drop of the whole party is just like, you son of a bitch, you have Jurassic Parked us. Like, welcome to Astral Park.
Yes.
So this guy had been he won this property, this patch of land off someone else in a game of cards. He'd already recently acquired a lot of dinosaurs, part of his other weird and wonderful business endeavors. So he thought, perfect, I've got a place to open a zoo. Skipping over many points, they were basically being fed through these automated feeding systems that the businessman didn't have the intelligence to look into, being fed creatures of chaos that we've met through other arcs of the game, imbuing them with all of this mad power. The dinosaurs have escaped, there's chaos magic everywhere. Please help me in my business was largely the plot hook for that. So we're happy to help him. But this is when things start to get, if things haven't gotten weird yet, things start to get really weird now. They were convinced
only just now.
Only just starting to get weird. They were convinced that Jeff Goldblum must be lying to them. And he was, in a way. Just not about what they thought he was lying about. He was lying about his appearance, about his voice. And this is where the lessons of don't let your own ridiculous improv write you into a hole that you then have to spend a week writing your way back out of for when you play again. What's he hidden as? He was just going to be a gnome, and for some reason I thought, oh cool, funny little flavor. He's a garden gnome, literally a little porcelain dude, fishing rod, the full works when he drops his illusion on himself. How have you become this way? Why are you a sentient garden gnome? Came up, and well, it's because his mum was a gnome and his dad was a garden, a sentient garden.
Oh my god! And you're just riffing this on the fly.
And I'm just shooting from the hip now, really. And this is when the answers I was giving were raising a lot more questions than they were answering for both me and the players. They wanted to know a lot more about how does one function as a sentient garden? How does one reproduce as a sentient garden? So rumors that have come up that, you might have heard about this. There are large desert terrains that have been kind of terraformed. They're no longer deserts. All of these foreign invasive species from far-flung plains have been appearing in deserts around the world because of this businessman. This gardener father that he has. His dad is a huge, like mountain, small moon-sized ball of grass, satellite that would have been bouncing around the astral sea.
That's no moon. That's a ball of grass.
That's my dad. So now Garden Bloomgold, which is his name, he rents out his services to save kind of arid landscapes and lands there and just rolls over them, like leaving his grassland mark. His wife, the gnome, Barbara, the butcher, stands atop him and kind of walks along him like a hamster in a wheel. And they are planting invasive species everywhere. Druid in the party obviously is like, this is a problem. We don't know what space plants are going to do in our desert. So now I'm having to kind of frantically write into the future of this game, like, oh well, they're going to want to explore this garden planet.
100%.
So now I have that to work with, just like a horde of scrambled down notes of things that I've said. Like, we're going to explore this at some point. This seems fun, but now I've got a lot of holes.
Is anybody else getting strong Guardians of the Galaxy 2 vibes from this?
I was thinking,
there's one fucking planet.
Yeah.
Ego, the living planet.
There's a lot of questions still to answer. But we carried on across our Jurassic landscape, and found the scientist behind these automatic feedings, all of this stuff, who was effectively a rubber duck version of Richard Attenborough. Mostly because I found a really funny picture of a rubber duck version of Richard Attenborough and wanted to use it for the token.
Oh, God.
So they met this
Now
rubber
I have
duck.
to look that up.
He'd been described as by Malcolm Bloomgold as the old quack, the quack doctor that works for him. A horrible joke to set up in there. But that's the kind of game this was. There was a lot of kind of complicated door puzzles and things that they were trying to solve, but basically revealed that the rubber duck was behind all of this. He'd swindled this businessman into giving him the opportunity to build his perfect chaos factory to make a horde of chaos dinosaurs to swim out across the plains. Yeah, we murdered him, saved Bloomgold, and boom, that was the kind of end of things. But it was one of those games that as you're playing, you are actively aware of, wow, this is going a long way out in the realms of ridiculousness. And we play in a game of chaos where ridiculous happens every week. It's like, I think I might have finally reached the top of my chaos mountain. I don't know how I can get weirder from here.
It can get weirder, never doubt that. But I had to look up the rubber duck version of Richard Attenborough, and it's his character from Jurassic Park, and it's got Newman as well. Clutching, there's a rubber duck version of Newman clutching the Barbasol can. I can't. Oh no, who did this?
Yeah.
That's freaking brilliant. Oh my gosh.
They're really cute, really cute.
Just in general, though, your Jesus, Jack, your game. How is it? Yeah, where do you go from here at this point?
Oh yeah, there is so much kind of lined up for us of things that we still have to explore, and the list is just the most ridiculous set of things that are left out there.
Amazing, incredible. But to the point of just players mucking about in the astral sea, asking all kinds of bad physics questions, like how, is it wet? I don't know if I've told this one before, but basically, I had a player at the end of a campaign. They were aboard a GIF bombard, if you know that. It's basically, the GIF are these hippopotamus-looking folk, but heavily inspired by old, British legionnaires and maybe even almost Napoleon era sort of military and uniforms and stuff. And they ride these enormous cannon ships that have one main cannon this length of the entire ship itself. So anyway, we were on one of those trying to get to a Mind Flayer planet, and there was a fleet of nautiloids coming at them. And a Mind Flayer capital ship, which I had spent so much time on building it out. I was like, there's no way they're going to survive this, but that's the point. It's a better way to get them on the planet. I had the interior all built out. I was looking at old clips from the original Halo game for the interior of Truth and Reconciliation for sort of inspiration on that. I see some nods. That's good. That's good. But then my wizard is standing on the deck of the ship as this fleet is approaching him. The capital ship is like getting ready to engage its tentacles and basically ram it. Took some damage from the cannon, of course, but he then says, "Hey, JC, I have Wall of Force." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Does that stay in the spot where I cast it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it would. If you're not casting it on a surface or inside the gravity plane of a ship, it would probably remain in its place until your concentration broke or you're too far." And he said, "Okay. And nothing can pass through that wall of force, right?" And I was like, "Oh, I know. There's some stipulations in the spell." He said, Yeah, but physically, nothing can pass through." And I said, "Yeah. So what happens if a ship coming at full speed crashes into a wall of force?" We found out.
Oh, yeah.
What happens is the DM loses 3 sessions worth of content and has to then bring his whole group onto the planet a lot faster than intended. And I just watched all of my planning and my hopes and dreams for a cool nautiloid crawl accordion into a wall of force, and every Mind Flayer aboard just getting sprung out into space from it or liquefied in the destruction of it. It was so sad, yet of course so clever. And someone, yeah.
So, sorry, I was just going to say that reminds me so much. I felt that pain before, but that reminds me so much. If anyone's seen Campaign 2 of Critical Role, there's a very similar moment where Matt hands out these very detailed rules that he's created for actual on the ocean ship combat and sort of manning these ships. And then I believe it's Talison's character casts a spell and basically flips the ship that they're being pursued by.
God.
And it works and it totals the ship. And at that point, Matt just sort of
He's
tearing up the rules because
I've seen the GIF of that, which is hilarious. Oh man, the amount of chaos players can cause with a single spell or a single item. Like look at the unmovable rod or the immovable rod. Sorry, that item alone has led to so many shenanigans. You can do so much with that. You could probably do the same effect of like an oncoming vehicle, but maybe at a lesser scale, like a cart or something of that sort, that would just get sliced in half by pushing a button in the air on a rod. It's the dumbest thing. And I recently gave my players in my in a private game I'm running, which is set in the domains of dread. I gave them, because they're in a setting that's very ancient Egyptian inspired, I gave them a carpet of flying. And I realized how poorly the DMG describes the mechanics of how this thing works. I realized I need to flesh it out, like very, very much so. Does it have AC? Does it have hit points? Who can use it? Because it doesn't require attunement. All it says is the command word and you can activate it. So can anyone activate it on their turn, outside of their turn? Like there's nothing written for it. And they have been using that to bypass. I was like, this is a great way for them to get across the desert. Now that they've experienced the dangers of the desert, this is something for them to sort of bypass it quickly as we're wrapping up this section of the campaign. But they're using it in my dungeon, guys. They're bypassing everything. Everything I throw at them, this freaking carpet of flying mummies can't fly. Ah! Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah,
it's so dangerous giving players these seemingly one-use
it's
items
the ones that you don't think are going to get you. That get you. I had a similar one with the Jurassic Park game with the flight just completely neutralizing an encounter. It's like you are being chased by incredibly fast dinosaurs trampling through the forest behind you. It's like, well, three of us can fly, and we're all strong enough to carry the other three. I bet your dinosaurs can't fly. Like, oh no, no, they can't. Okay, sit. Well, I'll take that part of the game out then. We'll move on.
Jack, let me.
When I would be like,
pterodactyls have suddenly appeared.
Well, the pterodactyl swoop in.
Let me introduce you to Quetzalcoatlus, which is a giraffe-sized pterosaur. Which is one of the most frightening animals I think may have ever existed.
Just you see that in a museum, you're like, what the hell is that?
I think you could easily transpose the rules of a rock. Is there a stat block for Quetzalcoatlus?
There's a stat block for Quetzalcoatlus.
But a rock,
I think it's from
probably would be more accurate for the size of the thing. It's huge.
But speaking of silly names, because you were talking about that earlier, Jack, I was thinking of this because I have a recurring NPC that keeps popping into all my games. She's a hag-inspired character named Jenny, but she's usually helpful to the players. But she also has a pet rock that she named Dwayne. And I wait and I sit there and James is grown.
He looks in pain.
See the
James
look on
hurt.
he looks like he's injured. He usually takes my players a long time because I don't say that it's a rock. I don't say she has a pet rock named Dwayne. I describe an enormous bird, blocking out the sun or the moon, and arrives and everything else. And I'm like, and then she starts calling it Dwayne. And then when people finally end up asking what it is, I'm like, oh, so this is my rock. And I just wait. I watch them. And then surely at some point, about a minute later, one of my players just silently goes, and closes their eyes. And I live for that.
Me too. Sometimes like more than half of my game prep is where can I leave these stupid breadcrumbs for them to eventually find.
God.
I have a short tale from the table that got postponed over from last week. So if we've got chance, I'd love to just quickly go through it. It's a short one, really. But I promised the guys, this is from Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, which I run on a Monday evening. And they are in the process. I've mentioned before, it's a very Greek mythology inspired campaign. It's a third party adventure, but a very good one. And they are in the process of completing their third of 3 labors that they have been tasked with completing as part of their epic tale. And this one involves going to an ancient necropolis to recover an item from it. And they have been warned of the dangers of this location. And it's in the mountains. It's in a mist-shrouded portion of the mountains. And even before they got there, they're in the midst of that now. Even before they get there, the book has an encounter that precedes that. So, spoilers if you are wanting to play Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, or plan to play it, or are playing it, and haven't got to the third. You can play them in any order, but this specific labor, which isn't a spoiler because you know very early on what the labors are. So, minor spoilers for a random encounter that takes place before getting to the necropolis. But you pass through the mountains. It's silent. There's no noise, no animals, only the faintest bit of wind and the sound of your own footsteps on frozen rock. And you come to a very narrow passage. And that's when you hear the singing. Very beautiful, alluring singing coming from nowhere. And it is, of course, harpies, because why wouldn't it be? It's Greek-inspired. And the harpies are down below. They're under this ledge in their nests, singing to anyone that would pass by, enticing them to jump off of the ledge into their nests. Creatures that have a mass saving throw are very dangerous in one specific circumstance, which also nearly happened to me in Icewind Dale, and that is when most, if not all, of the party fail that saving throw. That is a dangerous situation to be in. And that happened in this instance. All but one of the party failed the saving throw to resist the harpy's call. All of the players, bar one of them, started making their way steadily to the edge of the ledge to jump off. Now, 2 things happen jumping off of the ledge. 1, you land in the nest of the harpies, take a bit of damage, and become the thrall of the harpy, and you're at their mercy. Or, if you fail another saving throw to jump off the ledge, you overshoot the harpy's nest, and you fall, I think it's 50 feet, and take a good old whack of damage falling that distance. So, it was all panic stations, and this one individual character who was not under the influence of the harpies was frantically trying to figure out ways to stop these poor companions from jumping off of a cliff. And the way that they went about it was actually pretty inspired. One of them does have a mechanical bird, very akin to Bubo from the classic. It's Clash of the Titans?
Clash of the Titans, yeah.
But it is a kite instead, a red kite called Voithos.
Oh, nice.
And so the kite was trying to sort of push them back and stop them from flying over the ledge, and failed. So the spellcaster, who was luckily a spellcaster, cast Grease on all of the party members because they were within close proximity to one another, which forced them to
fall prone.
Forced them to have to make a saving throw or fall prone, which all but one of them failed. They fell prone. And to not be a complete psychopath and have them just slip off the ledge and punish the player for greasing them.
That's where my brain went. The forward momentum of them slipping, just have them slip.
I created a slip and slide.
Yes, I had them moving they were moving zombie-like, very slow and enticed by this song. So they went full sprint. And I thought it was a very clever idea with such a short period of time to come up with a plan. So I didn't want to punish them by having them just all slip off the ledge.
Of course not. Right,
that's a TPK machine waiting to happen. So only one of the players ended up going over the ledge, but tragically she did overshoot it and took a big old whack of damage. But at that point, the rest of the party had snapped out of their funk, their harpy-induced funk, and without question, threw ropes over the edge of the platform and descended down to fight the harpies, and ended the encounter in a really cool moment where 2 of the harpies were remaining, trying to harry the players as they were climbing up ropes, furiously rescuing one another, and the party, now all together, lined up with their weapons drawn, their spells ready to cast in a full line of offense.
Montage.
And the two harpies, picture a a sort of clay red vase with the black Grecian artwork of these characters on the side of this cliff, standing in readiness against these two harpies. And the two harpies decided, no, that's suicide. It's time to leave. So they flew away and left to entice more adventurers another day. And it was a really cool moment. They were so thrilled when this grease spell went off, and most of them slipped and fell and sort of bumped their heads and came to their senses. With such a short window of opportunity to save the party, I thought it was a very clever use of an otherwise irritating spell.
Yeah.
I promised them I would bring that up on the podcast.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Well done, guys.
Brilliant moment. Very cool. Yeah, I've used harpies to lethal effect before. I've often had one in the beginning of a Feywild campaign where they hear the singing, and it comes into effect when they're on one end of a bridge that the harpies have purposefully perched themselves at the other end of, in order to, because it's an ancient, old, rotting bridge and there's a rushing river below. So when they fall and they take their, 10d6 whatever bludgeoning damage or 5d6 bludgeoning damage, they can just go swoop down, pick them up out of the river in their talons and bring them up to their nests and finish the work from there. But it's always fun. I love harpies. Just the mechanic of drawing somebody beyond, like, out of your compulsion. I might have even talked about it here once, because I remember that was the beginning of the Spectarium games, James. Are you still running that one, by the way?
Not at the moment. No, we're taking a long hiatus, that one. Yeah.
Gotcha. Mine is still going. We've had a couple of people drop in and got a new one at one point, but we're still chugging along. Speaking of new campaigns, by the way, I wanted to share that I've officially had the first session of Vecna Eve of Ruin, which has been fun. I mean, it was session 0, so I could set expectations and warn them how much I've changed the module, basically. But it was fun. It seemed like everybody has really strong, really cool character concepts. We already have a couple of fan favorites, because I gave them at the very end of the session a brief sort of just introduction round of their characters as they all walk into a tavern, because I figured, this is the final 5th edition adventure. We need to start in a tavern, even if the book doesn't include it, right? Just for old time's sake, so to speak. So we're starting there. They seem really gung-ho for the next sesh, so I'll let you know how it goes, because I know, Damien, you're now officially doing it.
Speaking of, we're continuing. I think I mentioned before, we're continuing on from my Icewind Dale campaign into Vecna. It's a perfect opportunity, given that they ended at level 10, and they were all interested, and it came out right as we finished Icewind Dale. It was perfect timing. So that is due to start, I believe, on Tuesday next week. We should be getting up information soon. There are, as far as I'm aware at the time of recording, still 2 places available for that game. We have 4 players currently who are from Icewind Dale campaign, but don't let that intimidate you. You will be fully welcomed into the fold and filled in on anything you need to know going into what effectively will be. They've dealt with Icewind Dale. There may be some loose threads, but for the most part, that campaign is done. So you're not going to have to do homework on Icewind Dale. You're going to be going into a brand new campaign. So come aboard, jump on, and
do it.
Enter the multiverse.
How's your treatment of the adventure going? Because this is starting soon for you, because I know this was just a decision of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, probably not as extensive as yours. I am making some tweaks, but what with everything I mentioned at the start, with moving house and
there's a lot
having
going on.
A couple of month old baby, it's going to be difficult to completely change it as much as I maybe would like. But I a lot of the things I would like to change, I have some time to do in between now and getting there, just depending on where it's seated in the book. So starting out will be a very early. It's a similar session 0 of kind of, if anybody does jump on, you'll be kind of introduced to the characters that you'll be going on an adventure with, and sort of meeting them and having a kind of pressure-free beginning to sort of bring you into the fold ahead of a grueling journey through the multiverse and beyond. So
excellent. Really exciting. I can't wait to.
We have to just keep exchanging notes.
I kept thinking, I was like, oh, now that Damien's doing it as well, I was like, I thought of that Jeff Goldblum moment, bringing it back to Jeff
Here he
Goldblum.
comes.
Everybody. Yep. Oh no,
As well, it
here he
always should.
comes. But that moment from Thor Ragnarok where he shows up as the Grandmaster and he says, "Oh, I love this. I don't know who's gonna get it first." And he does that weird Jeff Goldblum inning, and I posted that as a GIF, and that sparked a whole conversation about like, ooh, maybe there should be a competition. Who's gonna kill Vecna first? It was like, no, I don't actually want that. I just wanted Jeff Goldblum in there. Oh God. If anyone would find a way to break the fourth wall and make their way into a D&D campaign, anyone on this planet Earth, I would probably say Jeff Goldblum is up there. He's in the top 5 list. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, he's like an
a
NPC from a
celebrity,
game
like-
took over the reality forever. It's like, I'm this NPC stuck now. I'm Goldblum. Good day.
Yeah, right.
I do have like a
gosh.
dream celebrity D&D table where I'm just like, these are the celebrities I would like.
If
Who
you've
are
got
your
it, go
dream
for it. I want to hear
celebrities?
this.
Yeah.
So so I sort of based it off what I imagined like their public perception of what their characters would probably be. So I'd love Stephen Fry playing.
Oh
someone
yeah.
like
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
that.
How cool would that be?
Yeah, I think Florence Welch playing some sort of druid from Florence and the Machine. I think that'd be very cool. Who else did I have? Oh, I had
see
Chris
that.
Evans. I think would like Captain America as a fighter.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah, he feels like that. That's actually a really balanced table. You have Stephen Fry, who I feel like would approach it very thoughtfully and very provokingly, and kind of push you to answer like deep questions about your world. And then there's Chris Evans, who's just the literal opposite of that. He's there to create chaos and let you deal with it. You know, that's kind of how I picture it. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to create a table
really.
that wasn't full of people who I knew were into D&D already. I was like, okay, if I was taking people out of their comfort zones and was like, let's play a game of D&D, who would I want there?
Nice. I've never thought about that. I have to assemble my celebrity team for my table.
Me too. If it was the D&D focused one, I mean, we'd be getting Matt Mercer, Deborah Wall, Brennan Lee Mulligan, just to fill the table with excellent celebrity GMs. I think I killed JC. Was it Deborah Wall, JC?
Deborah Wall. Yeah. I can't publicly announce how much I'm obsessed with Deborah Wall. When I got to meet her, I saw her in a show, in a production, a Shakespeare production, kind of randomly. My partner at the time and I were in San Diego, and we stumbled across we didn't really have any plans for the day apart from just wander San Diego and for a day and see what we find. And we found a theater, and they were doing, I believe it wasn't Midsummer. I think it was, I forget the name of or I forget which exact Shakespeare it was. But sure enough, when I saw the poster for it, I was like, oh, this seems lovely. Yeah, let's do this. It's in the evening. We have time. And then I looked, and it was her. And this was just in like a couple of years ago. So she was, coming back into D&D world, and she was doing Relics and Rarities, or had just about wrapped it up. And I've been a longtime fan. And I kind of started hyperventilating a little bit. I was like, and she was wonderful in it. I feel embarrassed that I can't remember which Shakespeare show it was, but it was truly a wondrous little sort of stumble thing. And I very awkwardly waited with my partner for about 20 minutes afterwards while there were friends and family greeting her, because it was clearly not well advertised. And then she finally came and greeted us, and of course was stellar and very nice. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm hanging around. We'd just love to take a picture with you. We're really big fans, from all of your work and D&D stuff as well. And it was great. So I've I died a little bit when you said
that. That's really, really cool. Really cool. The celebrity I sort of waited after a show to meet was Darren Brown. He's fascinating guy. I think it would be fascinating to play D&D with Darren Brown.
Yeah,
that would be really interesting.
He'd convince you that you were in the game It's
Yeah.
Yeah, he would. He
Yeah.
would. I would love.
It's, I cast
You know who I
fireball.
would love?
No, Darren, don't, please.
That'd be incredible. I would love Pedro Pascal. I think that would be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, that would be very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Right,
He seems
right.
like
Just
a really
think about
chill
that.
dude as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Just exactly what I would want. By the way, I forgot. I did have one other thing for today. We probably are over time, so I'm going to save it for next week. But just to tease it, or not to tease it, but to acknowledge that we've actually been requested to do this. A very wonderful former player of mine, and I actually believe my very first quote unquote player or I was going to say quote unquote client, but my very first player for Rolldark. I did a house call when I started with Rolldark, and I went to go do a private game, and it was at his house in London. He's since moved, but a wonderful player of mine and a very lovely guy overall has asked that I cover and talk a little bit about the Egyptian themed one shot that I ran for him all those many historical years ago, which I'd be more than happy to do, I suppose. But specifically, this request comes as would love to hear JC talk about how he created it, other groups' experiences, perhaps about the lore of the setting, as I got an impression there's more to it than just one shot worth. So yeah, that something we'll do next week. I'm looking forward to it.
I think
Yeah.
if anyone else, if you're listening and you have questions like that for us, whether you've played with us or you're just interested in our opinion on something, do message us. Let us
Yeah.
know. We'd love to
Do
hear
hit us
you
up.
and answer some questions.
Yeah, and it's not just us too. If there's any questions you have for any Rolldark DM,
Yeah.
or any comments or anything you just want to hear them talk about, do let us know on the podcast chatter channel, because we can always just touch base with that DM. Obviously, we did with you, Jack, this week, and we'll happy to do it with anybody else. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think then we have hit our time for the week. We've survived another week without Rob. Who?
What are we
I
calling
like how
this
this week we
episode?
haven't
Is it
even
we were
explained
robbed
why he's
3?
not here. We were robbed 3.
What
It's not
is a
right.
good title for we were robbed 3?
We were robbed 3. when
Maybe
he
it
left
should be.
security.
We should have done it differently. We should have done two robbed, 2 furious for the second one, and then
We were
this
robbed
one will be
3,
like
Tokyo Drift.
robbed 3 Tokyo Drift. That's what I was gonna say.
I was to steer it differently. I think maybe this would just be the obligatory Jeff Goldblum episode.
Yes. Called exactly that, the obligatory Jeff Goldblum. 100%.
Okay.
Amazing.
Well, from us here at Tales at the Table, then that is goodbye.
Indeed.
Thanks,
See you
Jack.
next week. Thanks,
Thanks,
Jack.
Yes, thank you, Jack.
See you around.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.